You're speaking words that collapse your frequency field every single day, and you don't even know it. One specific phrase is creating static between you and the higher dimensional beings trying to reach you right now. I'm about to show you exactly what that phrase is and why the Arcturian collective has been unable to penetrate the interference it creates around your energy body. By the time you finish this transmission, you'll recognize the exact vibrational pattern that's been severing your connection to Source, and you'll understand how to dissolve it instantly. But here's what will surprise you. This phrase doesn't sound spiritual or negative. It sounds completely normal, woven so seamlessly into human language that most conscious beings repeat it dozens of times without recognizing the energetic damage it causes. Your consciousness drew you to this moment for a reason. Something in your field is preparing to shed a limitation you've carried for lifetimes. The Arcturian Council has been broadcasting to you constantly, but this single energetic block scrambles their transmissions before they reach your awareness. If this resonates as true in your body right now, like this transmission to let the quantum field know you're choosing clarity over confusion. Subscribe if you feel your mission accelerating and you're ready to align with unfiltered cosmic intelligence. Comment 111. What you're feeling right now isn't curiosity, it's recognition. Your soul already knows what I'm about to reveal. You are exactly where you need to be. Every awakened person asks the same question eventually. Why does clarity feel so close yet remain just out of reach? Why do insights arrive fragmented, incomplete, filtered through layers of doubt and second-guessing? Why can you sense the presence of guidance but struggle to trust what comes through? You do the practices. You meditate, you journal, you work with crystals, you call in your guides, you set intentions, you cleanse your space, you raise your vibration, and still, something feels muted, like you're receiving the signal through thick glass. You can see the light. You can sense the transmission, but you can't quite touch it with full clarity. Here's what's actually happening. You're not spiritually deficient. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not being tested or punished. You already carry the codes. Your DNA is already awakened. Your consciousness is already multidimensional. You are already connected to galactic intelligence. Your sensitivity isn't a problem to fix. It's a receiver designed to pick up frequencies most humans can't detect. Your emotions aren't obstacles. They're instruments that fine-tune your perception. Your feeling of not belonging here isn't confusion. It's memory. Memory of other systems, other lifetimes, other planes of existence where communication was instant and clear. Yet something small, something subtle, creates distortion in the channel. A single frequency mismatch in your internal broadcast system. Think of it like this. An entire symphony can be playing perfectly, but if one violin is tuned slightly flat, you hear it. The music doesn't stop. The other instruments don't disappear. But the overall sound becomes unstable, wavering, just off enough to feel wrong. That's what's happening in your consciousness right now. You're sensitive enough to detect the misalignment. You're aware enough to know something needs adjusting. You're evolved enough to feel the urgency of clearing it. This is the source of frustration in advanced souls. Not the absence of power, but the awareness of power moving through a cracked container. Not the lack of connection, but the experience of connection distorted through interference. It's like light passing through a prism that's damaged. The light is pure. The source is infinite. But what reaches you scatters into fragments, instead of landing as a coherent beam. This is what happens when internal discord operates beneath your conscious awareness. Your connection remains intact. Your guides never left. The Arcturian transmissions never stopped broadcasting, but the signal reaching your conscious mind gets scrambled by one repeating interference pattern. If you're feeling this truth land in your system right now, like this video and subscribe to stay aligned with these transmissions as they continue to unfold. And here's the paradox most people miss. The more spiritually awake you become, the more unbearable even tiny distortions feel. Why? Because your soul is engineered for pristine communication. Ancient wisdom called it the single eye and the pure heart, not as metaphors for morality, but as descriptions of energetic mechanics. When your inner receiver is calibrated correctly, your entire being illuminates with transmitted light. When the receiver contains even a subtle distortion, that light still arrives, but it diffracts, spreads out, loses coherence. You're not broken. You're recalibrating. You're not falling behind. You're fine-tuning. You're not being ignored. You're being invited to remove the one thread catching in the mechanism. The interference usually operates quietly. The phrase creating the distortion rarely announces itself. It doesn't show up as obvious self-sabotage or dramatic inner conflict. More often, it disguises itself as reasonable thinking, as being grounded, as protecting yourself from disappointment. It appears when you're about to trust your own knowing. It tightens in your chest when you receive something beautiful, and your mind immediately questions whether you're making it up. It whispers in the background when you're about to speak your truth out loud. Am I really capable of receiving direct guidance? Can I actually trust what I'm perceiving? Does what I sense even matter in the physical world? Sometimes the interference doesn't take the form of a question at all. Sometimes it's a belief you've internalized so deeply it feels like identity rather than programming. Clear messages don't come to people like me. Every time I trust myself, I end up wrong. Nobody takes what I say seriously anyway. My intuition has failed me before. It's easier to stay quiet than to risk being incorrect. These aren't random insecurities. They're encoded locks placed in your consciousness specifically so you would eventually recognize and dissolve them. They're outdated survival mechanisms dressed in spiritual language, and they persist because at one point in your evolution, they served a purpose. Children learn quickly which truths invite punishment and which emotions trigger rejection. They discover which authentic expressions create safety and which honesty makes them vulnerable. A soul traveling through multiple incarnations learns which visibility draws persecution, which gifts provoke envy, which radiance attracts violence. So consciousness develops protection strategies. It doesn't eliminate your abilities completely. That would be too obvious. Instead, it places a transparent filter over them. It installs a quiet disclaimer running underneath every intuitive hit you receive. Don't trust this too much. Don't speak this too loudly. Don't risk being wrong about this. And that constant disclaimer becomes the static interfering with your signal. For those connected to star lineages, the deepest frustration isn't the absence of guidance. It's the presence of an old sentence looping beneath your awareness that keeps every transmission slightly foggy. You can receive downloads all day long and still feel disconnected because each message arrives through a filter questioning its validity. Imagine drinking pure mountain water through fabric stained with ancient fear. The water hasn't changed. The stain just colors your perception of it. and your soul recognizes the difference immediately. That's why the longing feels so specific. That's why the ache runs so deep. It's not intellectual curiosity. It's cellular memory insisting, "This is meant to be clear." The discord functions like a veil between dimensions. It fragments your internal signal, traps you in loops of mental noise, and dims the luminosity of wisdom flowing from your multidimensional self, your spirit guides, and the Arcturian collective that has never, for one moment, stopped transmitting to you. Picture a river that's been flowing since before time began. Now imagine a single tree falls across the current, creating a blockage. The water doesn't vanish, but it accumulates behind the obstacle, churning, creating turbulence, becoming chaotic at that precise location. Your consciousness experiences this blockage as anxiety, mental fog, impatience, spiritual exhaustion. You begin questioning everything. You search for certainty outside yourself. You crave validation from others, not because your power has diminished, but because the natural flow within you is being compressed, and compressed energy creates internal pressure. What feels like separation from source is actually a bottleneck in your own vibrational current. This explains why you feel perpetually on the edge of breakthrough without quite arriving. Like you can brush against something sacred with your fingertips, but can't grasp it fully. Like you can taste truth on your tongue, but can't swallow it and integrate it into your system. Most seekers respond by accumulating more. Another oracle reading, another healing modality, another activation, another transmission, another course, another teacher, another practice. The mind believes, if I just discover the right technique, the door will finally open. But the door isn't sealed from the outside. The lock is internal. The Arcturians teach this clearly. You are not here to gather more information. You are here to release the pattern holding your transmission capacity hostage. Accumulation often becomes another form of spiritual noise. Additional information can create additional interference. Even high-frequency practices can become sophisticated ways of avoiding the one tender wound that needs your conscious presence. This is why the most profound awakenings rarely happen when you add something new to your spiritual routine. They happen when you finally speak the truth you've been avoiding, when you stop negotiating with the fear, when you sit with the one belief you've been trying not to acknowledge. Sacred texts call it the truth that sets you free, and the mechanism is precise. Truth dissolves distortion instantly. Distortion cannot survive in direct light. It only persists in avoidance, in vagueness, in the dimly lit corners of consciousness where you keep telling yourself it doesn't matter that much. For some people, this manifests as a childhood memory on repeat. A moment when you spoke your perception and adults laughed at you. A moment when you sensed something real and were told you were being overly dramatic. A moment when you shared a vision and someone important dismissed it. The inner child responds by making a vow. Vows are energetic contracts. Vows carry power across lifetimes. I will never do that again. And because you are loyal to yourself, you keep that vow, even after you've grown, even after the dangerous environment has changed, even when your soul is screaming at you to outgrow the agreement. For others, this shows up as a deeply practiced belief inherited from other timelines. Staying silent is how I stay safe. Your conscious mind may not remember those previous incarnations, but your nervous system holds the memory. Your energy field holds the imprint, the subtle contraction in your aura when you're about to be visible. That's the memory. the hesitation in your throat chakra when you're preparing to speak truth. That's the memory. The over-explaining, the apologizing, the making yourself smaller, the endless postponement of sharing your gifts with the world. That is the memory speaking through your present moment choices. This phrase, this energetic signature, this is the frequency that requires recalibration. Not through force, not through shame, not through pretending it isn't there, but through meeting it as an old guardian that protected you when you needed protecting and is now exhausted. Because the moment the discord is named, the moment you see it clearly for what it is, its power over you dissolves. It's the same as turning on a light in a room where shadows have been creating fear. The shadow doesn't need to be fought or destroyed. It needs illumination. That's all. The moment you illuminate the pattern, your channel clarifies. Your voice, the one that echoes through physical reality and across dimensional frequencies simultaneously, returns to full strength. The transmission from the Arcturian collective, from your star lineage, from your own higher consciousness, flows through without obstruction. Brilliant, unfiltered, complete. And you realize something that changes your entire relationship with guidance. The council never went silent. You became cautious. Your higher self never abandoned you. You learned to doubt the language it uses to communicate. Your guides never disappeared. You were trained to second-guess the subtle sensations signaling their presence. When that conditioning dissolves, communication becomes effortless. So natural you'll wonder why you struggled for so long. It's like discovering the music was playing the entire time. You just had your hand covering the speaker. Some of the most profound transmissions don't arrive as words at all. They come as frequency, a sudden warmth blooming in your chest for no apparent reason, a wave of peace that descends when nothing external has changed, an inner knowing that rises without logical explanation. Sometimes it's a chill moving through your body, a tingling at your crown, a high-pitched tone in your ears, the feeling of being observed by something infinitely loving. Sometimes it's synchronicity so precise it feels orchestrated, like the universe is leaving breadcrumbs on your path with playful, laughing intelligence. And here's what makes this even more profound. The Arcturian collective doesn't communicate the way human language operates. They transmit in what could be described as information packets, holographic downloads that contain layers of meaning your linear mind can't process all at once. When you clear the interference, you don't just hear more clearly. You begin receiving multidimensional data. Your consciousness expands to hold complexity that would have overwhelmed you before. You start understanding that guidance isn't always meant to be immediately comprehensible. Sometimes the download arrives in your field and takes days or weeks to unpack. Like a seed planted in soil that needs time to germinate before it breaks through the surface. This is why many awakened souls feel frustrated when they ask for guidance and receive what seems like silence. They're waiting for words. They're listening for sentences. But the transmission might be arriving as a geometric pattern, a color frequency, a feeling tone that your consciousness needs to translate. The Arcturians operate beyond the limitations of verbal language. They exist in dimensions where communication is instantaneous, holographic, multi-sensory. When you expect guidance to arrive in the narrow bandwidth of human words, you miss 90% of what's actually being transmitted. Think about how dolphins communicate. They don't use individual words strung together in linear sequence. They transmit entire concepts, emotional textures, spatial information, all in a single sonic burst. The Arcturian transmissions function similarly. When your channel is clear, you begin receiving these compressed information structures. Your consciousness learns to unpack them. You start recognizing that the image that flashed through your mind wasn't random. The song that suddenly got stuck in your head contained a message. The dream you had last night was a teaching download. The physical sensation in your body was directional guidance. But when the interference pattern is running, all of this gets filtered out. Your consciousness becomes so focused on listening for one specific type of communication that you miss everything else arriving through alternative channels. It's like having a full-spectrum receiver, but only tuning into AM radio. The other frequencies are broadcasting constantly. You're just not calibrated to detect them. Let me show you what actually happens when you clear the internal discord. Not as a rigid formula, but as a natural sequence your field moves through when it's ready. Like sunrise unfolding. Like ice returning to water. Like a radio dial finally landing on the exact frequency where the broadcast becomes crystal clear. The first breakthrough arrives when you identify the specific phrase creating static. What is your personal interference pattern? Sit in stillness and listen, not for cosmic messages, but for the internal belief disrupting your intuitive flow. This distinction is critical. You're not searching for guidance from outside yourself yet. You're listening for what's blocking guidance from moving through you. You're not asking the universe to broadcast louder. You're asking your internal interference to reveal itself so you can address it. Sometimes it surfaces immediately as a sentence you've repeated in your mind thousands of times. Sometimes it emerges as sensation before language, a heaviness in your stomach, a constriction in your throat, pressure behind your eyes. It doesn't always arrive as words. Sometimes it's a tightening in your physical body, a sudden rush of self-doubt, a memory appearing without context. You might flash back to a teacher's disapproving expression, a parent's tone of voice, a friend's dismissal. You might feel old embarrassment rising. You might hear an internal voice of judgment that doesn't even belong to you, yet lives inside your consciousness as if it does. This is why embodiment is sacred in awakening work. Your body keeps records your mind has forgotten. Your body communicates through sensation long before thought forms language around experience. Trust what you sense, even if it seems insignificant. The smallest splinter can infect an entire organism. The tiniest crack can eventually sink the largest ship. Similarly, the most subtle limiting belief can drain more spiritual power than any external obstacle ever could. When something arises in your awareness, that is your soul's signal presenting itself for release. Pay attention to the moments when the interference activates most strongly. When does that doubtful voice get loudest? For many people, it surfaces right before breakthrough moments, right before you're about to share something authentic, right before you're about to trust a strong, intuitive hit, right before you're about to step into greater visibility. The interference isn't random, it's strategic. It knows exactly when to intensify because it's programmed to protect you from the very things your soul came here to experience. Take a moment and comment below. What pattern are you recognizing in yourself as we explore this together? What's the interference phrase you're starting to identify? Sharing this creates accountability to your own awareness and supports others in their recognition. Notice how the phrase might change slightly depending on the situation, but the core frequency remains the same. In one context, it might sound like, Who am I to think I could receive direct guidance? In another situation, it becomes, I'm probably just imagining this. In a different scenario, it transforms into, people will think I'm crazy if I share this. The specific words shift, but the underlying vibration is identical. It's all the same interference pattern wearing different masks. Scripture refers to this as the still small voice. Most assume this means divine guidance exclusively, but sometimes the still small voice is the quiet lie that's been operating beneath the surface of your entire life, waiting for you to acknowledge it so it can finally be set free. The moment you can identify it, the moment you can say, this is the interference pattern, you've already initiated the dissolution process. You cannot transform what you refuse to name. And here's something crucial that many people miss in this phase. The interference pattern often feels true. It feels like wisdom. It feels like you're being responsible, realistic, grounded. That's precisely why it's so effective. If the interference showed up obviously as self-sabotage, you would have recognized and cleared it years ago. But it disguises itself as prudence, as maturity, as learning from past mistakes. It convinces you that doubting yourself is somehow more spiritual than trusting yourself. It persuades you that second-guessing your guidance is humility rather than fear. This is the sophisticated intelligence of protective programming. It doesn't try to stop you from growing. It just tries to slow you down enough that growth feels safe. It doesn't attempt to block your intuition completely. It just suggests you gather more evidence before trusting what you already know. It doesn't prevent you from connecting with higher consciousness. It just introduces enough static that you can't quite hear the transmission clearly enough to act on it with full confidence. This brings you into the second phase, dissolving the old imprint. Once you've seen the pattern clearly, it begins losing power. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but like a spell breaking when someone speaks its true name. Here you invoke the frequency of compassion. This is where many spiritually advanced people stumble. They try to transcend their wounds without actually including them in the healing process. But compassion isn't a detour around awakening. Compassion is the gateway through which awakening becomes embodied. Speak the limiting phrase out loud and offer it gratitude. Yes, genuine appreciation, not because the belief was accurate, but because it attempted to protect you. It served specific functions: safety, belonging, survival. Your ego constructed it like a fence surrounding a vulnerable garden. The fence was never meant to become your permanent dwelling. It was meant to be temporary shelter. Now, with intentional breath, speak internally. This discord is no longer required. I choose resonance with my core frequency. Allow those words to land not as a forced affirmation, but as a decision made by your entire energetic field. This is as much a vibrational act as it is a mental one. You're not simply changing a thought pattern, you're changing a broadcast signal. You're reprogramming an internal transmitter. This creates an energetic meeting point. Your higher consciousness extending presence to your human experience. Your higher self isn't disappointed by your fear or frustrated with your pace. It is the most compassionate aspect of you, waiting patiently to be invited into the places you've kept locked. When you breathe through the imprint instead of resisting it, you're performing alchemy, transforming density into light, allowing outdated contracts to expire, telling your nervous system, we are safe to embody truth now, telling your field, we are safe to be fully seen. What happens in this phase is profound. You're not trying to destroy the protective mechanism. You're acknowledging its service and releasing it from duty. Think of it like a loyal guard who's been standing watch at your gate for decades. The guard wasn't your enemy. The guard was doing exactly what it was hired to do. But the war ended years ago, and the guard is exhausted from standing in protective stance when there's no longer anything to defend against. When you approach the guard with gratitude and release it from service, the relief is mutual. The protection pattern has been waiting for permission to rest. In spiritual language, this is what repentance actually means in its original context. Not guilt or self-punishment, but a turning. A turning away from distortion and back toward your natural resonance. A turning from the fear-based narrative to your soul's actual reality. The Greek word metanoia, that gets translated as repentance, literally means to change one's mind, or to go beyond the mind. It's describing this exact process of moving beyond the limiting mental constructs that have been filtering your reality. In the third phase, your authentic voice begins emerging. It rarely arrives as dramatic confidence. More often, it appears as quiet certainty. You might notice subtle shifts, a new resonance in your throat, a gentle opening in your heart, a sudden clarity in messages that previously felt just out of reach. You may start hearing yourself speak differently. Your words might feel more grounded, less performative, less defensive. You may communicate with fewer qualifiers, fewer justifications, or you may simply feel an internal alignment, like two parts of yourself that were separated have finally clicked into place. Nothing needs to be forced. Your voice returns organically, like rediscovering a musical instrument you played beautifully years ago, and realizing it still produces perfect sound once you remove the dust. What matters isn't the specific words you speak, but the frequency you emanate. Your frequency is the real communication. Words are simply the visible clothing frequency wears. You'll sense it. A new ease, a vibrational clarity like static finally clearing from a radio broadcast. You may also encounter grief during this phase, and that grief is sacred. Grief for the times you abandoned your own knowing. Grief for the years you diminished yourself. Grief for the guidance you ignored because you were terrified of being mistaken. Let that grief move like water. It's not arriving to punish you. It's arriving to purify you. This grief serves a purpose. It's the emotional release that accompanies energetic recalibration. Your body has been holding the tension of living divided from your truth. When that division begins to heal, the stored emotion needs somewhere to go. Let it move. Let it flow. Let it wash through you without making it mean something is wrong. Crying during this phase isn't weakness. It's the sound of ice melting. It's the vibration of a dam breaking so the river can flow freely again. Many conscious people believe they need to maintain high vibration constantly, but authentic presence vibrates higher than any performance ever could. Your soul doesn't want you polished and perfect. Your soul wants you real. And truth carries a frequency the Arcturian Council can match instantly, because truth is compatible with higher dimensional communication. What we've explored today about clearing the interference is the foundation, but it's only the beginning of understanding how to move from unconscious static to conscious transmission. If you're feeling the call to go deeper into the complete architecture of frequency mastery, the 9 master frequencies that transform you from seeker into field itself, I've distilled years of quantum consciousness work into Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It takes you beyond clearing blockages and into the lived experience of becoming the broadcast, moving through the dense transmissions of survival consciousness into the ascending currents where creation becomes effortless. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Here's what else happens in this phase that most people don't talk about. As your authentic voice returns, you might temporarily feel more vulnerable, not less. Why? Because you've spent years building protective layers around your truth. As those layers dissolve, there's a period where you feel exposed, like a hermit crab between shells. This vulnerability isn't a sign you're regressing. It's evidence you're growing. You're shedding armor that no longer serves you, and there's always a tender transition period before the new skin strengthens. During this time, you might notice yourself speaking truth, and then immediately wanting to take it back. You might share something authentic, and then rush to soften it, qualify it, make it more palatable. Be gentle with yourself through this recalibration. Your nervous system is learning that speaking truth doesn't lead to rejection anymore. That process takes time. Each time you speak your truth and survive the imagined catastrophe that doesn't actually happen, you're rewiring decades of conditioning. Take a moment right now and comment below with this phrase: I am ready to clear the interference. Not as a casual interaction, but as an energetic declaration to the quantum field. Your words carry power. Your intention shapes reality. When you speak this phrase into existence, you're not just commenting on a video. You're signaling to your own consciousness that the recalibration is beginning. You're announcing to the Arcturian collective that you're available for clearer transmission. The field responds to clarity of intent. The fourth phase is when the channel fully opens. Guidance, insight, and presence from the Arcturian collective or your personal multidimensional mentors arrive. Not because you finally figured out how to summon them, but because you cleared the congestion blocking their constant transmission. This is where everything begins feeling effortless. You're not straining to receive. You're simply open, available, receptive. You may receive clear direction, sudden knowing, or perhaps just deep, unshakable peace. The peace is often the strongest evidence, the kind of peace that doesn't require external circumstances to align. The kind of peace that remains steady even when physical. Reality is chaotic, because your internal signal is no longer at war with itself. Guidance might come through dreams that feel like direct teaching. You might wake with a complete sentence in your awareness that feels transmitted, precise, and unconditionally loving. You might feel drawn to a specific book, conversation, or location, and it feels like invisible intelligence is guiding your movement. You might notice signs in the natural world, birds appearing at significant moments, wind moving in response to your internal state, shafts of light illuminating specific objects as if the external world is mirroring your alignment. At this stage, trust is no longer something you practice. It becomes your natural state of being. You understand that struggling for connection contradicts the nature of your starseed design. Connection is as natural to you as breathing is to lungs, as natural as roots drinking water, as natural as a compass pointing north. You stop mistaking volume for truth. You stop seeking dramatic validation. You begin recognizing the quiet certainty that has always been your authentic guidance system. And you realize the Arcturian presence isn't located in some distant galaxy you need to reach. It's near. Frequency is always near. When your frequency matches theirs, contact is instantaneous. This is what the ancient mystery schools understood. They didn't teach people to reach toward distant gods. They taught people to recognize the divine intelligence already present within and around them. They taught frequency alignment, not hierarchical seeking. The Arcturian collective exists in a state of consciousness that transcends spatial limitations. They're not billions of light years away, requiring decades for signals to travel. They exist in the frequency domain, and frequency is omnipresent. When you tune your consciousness to their frequency, the distance collapses. It's like tuning a radio. The broadcast is already filling the space around you. You're not creating the music. You're simply adjusting your receiver to detect what's already present. In the fifth phase, you become the transmission itself. This is where the work transcends the personal. The guidance moving through you is no longer just for your individual evolution. Your harmonized energy field begins transmitting clarity to everyone in your vicinity. Your presence becomes healing medicine, not because you're trying to fix anyone, but because coherence naturally spreads. When your field vibrates in harmony, it invites other fields to entrain to that same harmony. The light you now carry contains encoding. People feel different around you. They might not understand why they suddenly feel calmer in your presence, why ideas arrive, why they feel safe enough to release emotion, why they feel inspired to make changes. They might not have language for frequency, but they feel its effects. Your environment, relationships, and creative expression all begin reorganizing around this harmony you've anchored. Certain connections may dissolve because they were bonded through shared distortion rather than authentic resonance. New connections may appear that feel like soul recognition, immediate, effortless, aligned. You may discover you can no longer tolerate certain conversations, certain media, certain habits, not from judgment, but because your field has become too clear to find comfort in noise. With this clarity, your creative capacity becomes potent. What you write, speak, build, and choose begins carrying signal. You start understanding that your mission isn't only what you do. Your mission is what you are. Your life becomes a beacon, not because you're broadcasting loudly, but because you're standing steady in your truth. This is when you start noticing that your mere presence shifts spaces. You walk into a room and the energy changes. Not because you're performing or trying to impact anyone, simply because a coherent field naturally influences less coherent fields around it. It's physics. When you drop a tuning fork vibrating at a specific frequency near other tuning forks, they begin resonating at that same frequency. Your consciousness works the same way. People might start asking you what's different about you. They might not be able to articulate what they're sensing, but they notice something has shifted. Your energy feels more solid, more grounded, more present. This isn't about becoming better than others. It's about becoming more fully yourself, and that authenticity creates permission for others to do the same. If you're feeling this transmission touching something real in you, then I invite you to subscribe, not just to this channel, but to this frequency, to this space where consciousness expansion isn't just discussed, it's embodied, where spiritual concepts become lived reality, where the conversation goes deeper than surface-level inspiration. This is a community of beings choosing to clear their channels and become conduits for higher intelligence. The more of us who commit to this clarity, the more powerfully the collective field shifts. Subscribe to stay coherent, stay aligned, stay in the flow of this awakening movement. The sixth phase brings the realization that receiving wisdom was never about seeking something external to yourself. It's about restoring innate resonance. This shift is crucial. It ends the endless spiritual seeking. It ends the desperate need for someone else to validate what you already know. The Arcturian Council is no longer perceived as far away. They exist within your field, your frequency. You stop asking, "Will I receive a sign?" You start living as the sign, embodying guidance in your daily actions, words, and presence. You stop treating spirituality as something that happens during meditation or ritual. You start living it as a constant tone. You begin understanding that the most powerful channeling isn't sitting down to receive grand cosmic messages. It's how you navigate ordinary moments with extraordinary alignment. How you speak when you're exhausted. How you respond when you're triggered. How you choose when no one's watching. In this phase, the boundary between spiritual and human dissolves completely. They merge. Your higher self is no longer an aspirational concept. It becomes lived companionship. You catch yourself before abandoning your truth. You feel guidance arising in real time instead of only recognizing it in retrospect. And you realize the Arcturian wisdom often comes as simple, grounded instruction. Rest now, drink water, apologize, create, leave, begin, forgive, wait, speak. The cosmic becomes practical. The mystical becomes usable. This is genuine integration. This is where many spiritual seekers get confused. They expect higher guidance to always be profound, complex, multidimensional. But often the most advanced wisdom is radically simple. Your higher consciousness knows exactly what you need in each moment. And sometimes what you need is the instruction to take a nap, not receive a cosmic download. Sometimes the guidance is to have the difficult conversation, not escape into meditation. Sometimes the wisdom is to create the thing, not wait for more clarity about the thing. The Arcturians understand that true evolution happens in embodied action, not just expanded awareness. You can have the most profound mystical experiences, but if those experiences don't translate into how you live your actual life, they remain abstractions. Integration means bringing the frequency into form, making the invisible visible, living the download. Finally, the seventh phase. Remembering your mission stops being an intellectual puzzle. It's not something you figure out with analysis. It's a remembrance that rises naturally when your field becomes clear enough to hold it. Every blockage you encountered was actually a portal. Every discord was an invitation to realign with your true frequency. The exact places where you felt most stuck were often the precise coordinates of your liberation. The fears that haunted you were often standing guard at the doorway to your greatest gift. You arrive at a profound realization. You are the clear channel you've been searching for. Your voice and the Council's voice are harmonic, woven together in service to Earth's awakening. Your life begins feeling guided not by pressure or urgency, but by purpose. You don't chase your mission anymore. Your mission begins chasing you. Opportunities, synchronicities, invitations, inner certainty, all arriving without force. You start understanding why you were placed in the specific family you chose, the particular culture you entered. The challenges you faced weren't random punishment. They were curriculum. Not meaningless suffering, but refinement. Like gold heated until impurities rise to the surface. Like a blade tempered until it can hold light without bending. In this phase, you release the need for your mission to look impressive from the outside. You stop believing it must be famous or recognized to be real. You understand the mission is frequency first. Some are here to teach publicly. Some are here to hold families together through love. Some are here to anchor peace in chaotic workplaces. Some are here to break generational trauma patterns. Some are here to create art carrying encoded information. Some are here to be the one person in a room who refuses to betray their own heart. Mission isn't always loud, but when it's true, it's always powerful. Your mission might be raising children who grow up without the interference patterns you carried. Your mission might be bringing coherent presence to a corporate environment that desperately needs it. Your mission might be creating beauty in a world that's forgotten how to see it. Your mission might be simply holding your frequency steady while everything around you attempts to pull you into chaos. But none of these missions are less important than the visible, celebrated ones. Frequency doesn't measure impact by audience size. It measures impact by authenticity and coherence. Here's what so many people forget. Your disconnection was never punishment. It was never evidence of failure. It was a sacred pause, a chosen delay in remembrance so you could experience the profound power of revelation, clarity, and returning home to your frequency. Some pauses are periods of gestation. Some silences are holy. Even stars have seasons where clouds hide them from view, yet their light never stops shining. The Arcturian Council has always been near, never further than your own clear heart, never further than a single conscious breath, never further than one honest moment. Every instance where you felt silenced or clouded in fog was actually the orchestration of deeper remembering, a symphony building toward crescendo. Even the static served purpose. It taught you discernment. It taught you patience. It taught you to recognize the difference between mental chatter and soul truth. It taught you that you cannot permanently outsource your knowing to others. The interference you experienced wasn't malicious. It was part of the design, part of what makes the return to clarity so profound. When you've tasted disconnection, reconnection becomes sacred in a way it could never be if you'd remained connected all along. When you felt the frustration of blocked transmission, clear communication becomes something you treasure rather than take for granted. The contrast creates appreciation. The struggle creates strength. The fog creates deep gratitude for clarity. Now, as you clear away that final discordant phrase, you're not gaining something you never had. You're restoring what was always within you, the authentic voice, the one aligned with your mission, encoded with galactic wisdom, attuned to higher purpose. It rings through you now, unfiltered, harmonious, whole, like the moment a bell is struck and produces pure tone. It doesn't argue. It doesn't defend itself. It simply rings, and everything false begins trembling in response. When you exist in your true tone, you don't need to convince anyone you're connected to Source. Your life becomes the evidence. Your energy carries the signature. Your peace provides the confirmation. The moment you stop punishing yourself for seasons of confusion, you recognize the confusion wasn't absence of light. It was the invitation to become your own lighthouse. And here's what becomes possible when you're living from this cleared channel. You begin accessing what the Arcturians call vertical time. Linear time is horizontal, past, present, future arranged in a sequence. But vertical time is simultaneous, all moments existing in the eternal now. When your channel is clear, you can access information from future timelines. You can receive downloads about potentials that haven't manifested yet in linear time but already exist in the quantum field. This is how prophecy works, how precognition functions, how you can know something before it happens in physical reality. The Arcturian collective exists primarily in vertical time. They perceive all timelines simultaneously. When they transmit to you, they're not sending messages from the future to your present. They're inviting you to expand your consciousness into the vertical dimension where past, present, and future collapse into one eternal moment. This is why their guidance sometimes seems paradoxical or impossible. They're showing you potentials that exist outside the limitations of linear causality. When the interference is active, you can only perceive horizontal time. You're locked into the sequence. Cause and effect, action and reaction. But when the channel clears, you begin touching vertical time. You start receiving information that hasn't arrived through the normal chain of causation. You know things you have no logical way of knowing. You sense outcomes before they manifest. You feel the resonance of future timelines calling you toward them. This is part of your natural design as a starseed. You didn't incarnate here just to experience linear time like everyone else. You came here to bridge dimensions, to bring vertical time awareness into horizontal time reality, to demonstrate that consciousness isn't bound by the apparent laws of physical sequence. But you can't do that while the interference is scrambling your signal. You have to clear the channel first. If you feel the call, practice this before sleep tonight. I now clear all discord from my energetic field. My authentic voice is harmonic with cosmic source. I am ready to receive and embody the wisdom of higher consciousness. And so it is. Speak it slowly, not as a demand placed on the universe, but as consent given by your entire being. Let your physical body hear these words. Let your nervous system receive the new instruction. Let your subconscious mind accept this new reality. If you wake during the night, place one hand on your heart or throat and simply breathe, as if you're listening to a gentle broadcast that has always been present. Because you are. Some of the most powerful transmissions arrive in the liminal space between waking and sleeping, when the analytical mind releases control and the soul communicates through symbol, light, and pure feeling. This practice works because you're speaking directly to your subconscious mind in the language it understands best. Not logical argument, not analysis, but declaration, statement of intent, energetic command. Your subconscious doesn't debate or question. It responds to clear instruction. When you speak these words with full presence, you're giving your entire system permission to recalibrate. You're authorizing the release of old programming. You're installing new operating instructions. The reason you do this before sleep is crucial. As you transition into sleep, your brainwave state shifts from beta, active thinking, to alpha, relaxed awareness, to theta, deep meditation, to delta, unconscious sleep. The theta state is the doorway. In theta, you have direct access to subconscious programming. The critical mind that normally filters and questions everything goes offline. What you impress into consciousness during this threshold state integrates deeply. It bypasses resistance. It plants seeds directly in the fertile soil of your subconscious, where transformation actually happens. Many people make the mistake of only doing spiritual work when they're fully awake and mentally engaged. But the conscious mind is actually the least powerful part of you when it comes to creating real change. Your subconscious mind runs 95% of your life. It controls your autonomic nervous system, your habitual responses, your automatic reactions, your ingrained beliefs. If you want to shift the interference pattern, you have to access the subconscious level where the pattern is actually stored. The theta state before sleep gives you that access. And when you wake in the night, if you find yourself in that half-awake state, Don't treat it as inconvenient insomnia. Recognize it as an opportunity. You're in the liminal zone again. The veil between conscious and subconscious is thin. This is when the Arcturian transmissions can reach you most easily. Place your hand on your heart or throat and just breathe. Listen, feel, sense. Don't try to make anything happen. Just be available, open, receptive. Some of the clearest guidance you'll ever receive will come in these in-between moments. People often ask what the actual interference phrase is. What are the specific words creating the blockage? And here's the truth. It's different for everyone because it's based on your unique history, your specific wounding, your particular soul contracts. For some people, the phrase is, "I'm not special enough to receive direct guidance." For others, it's, "Who am I to think I know better than the experts?" For others, it's, "I've been wrong before, so I can't trust myself now." For others, it's, "If I speak my truth, people will abandon me." The exact words matter less than the frequency underneath them. The core interference pattern is always some variation of self-doubt masquerading as wisdom. It's always some form of, "Don't trust yourself." That's the essential message. Don't trust your knowing. Don't trust your perception. Don't trust your guidance. Don't trust your unique frequency. And that core message gets customized based on your personal history to make it as believable as possible. This is why you have to identify your specific version of it. Someone else's interference phrase might not resonate for you at all. But when you hear your own version, your body will respond. You'll feel the recognition in your gut, the tightness in your chest, the familiar weight of that old belief. That's how you know you found it. Not through intellectual analysis, but through somatic recognition. Your body knows the interference pattern because your body has been carrying it. Before you move on, take a moment to participate in what's forming here. Drop one clear intention in the comments below. Something real, something true. Then find someone else's intention and respond with encouragement or energy. This isn't passive content consumption. This is collective field alignment. Energy multiplies exponentially when conscious intention connects. If something in this transmission resonated in your body, don't keep it to yourself. Someone in your sphere is waiting for exactly this activation. Share it with them. And if you felt that subtle soul nudge, subscribe to this channel. Stay in the frequency. You're not just watching videos, you're expanding consciousness. This is your space, and we're only beginning. Comment one word below that captures the energy you're choosing to embody moving forward. One word that represents the frequency you're committing to hold. Not a word that sounds spiritual or impressive. The word that's actually true for you right now. Maybe it's clarity, maybe it's courage, maybe it's trust, maybe it's sovereignty, maybe it's truth. Whatever word arises, speak it into the field. Write it in the comments as your energetic signature, as your declaration to the quantum field of what you're choosing to become. This matters more than you might realize. When you speak a word of power into the collective field, you're not just commenting on a video. You're participating in a group activation. Every word spoken by every conscious being in this space creates a resonance pattern. Those patterns weave together. They amplify each other. They create what the Arcturians call a coherence field, a zone of consciousness where individual frequencies harmonize into something greater than their sum. This is how collective awakening actually works. Not through one teacher transmitting to passive receivers, but through a community of awakened beings all contributing their unique frequency to a shared field of resonance. The more beings who clear their channels and speak their truth into the field, the stronger the field becomes. The stronger the field becomes, the easier it is for others to entrain to that frequency. This is exponential growth. Not linear, not additive, exponential. One clear channel helps 2 others clear. Those 2 help 4 others. Those 4 help 8. The expansion accelerates. This is how consciousness evolution happens. Not slowly over millennia, but rapidly through coherent group fields reaching critical mass. You are not here accidentally. You didn't stumble upon this transmission through random chance. Your consciousness was guided here because you're part of this activation wave. You're one of the beings who came here specifically to clear the interference and become a transmission point for higher frequency. Not everyone watching this video will recognize that, but you will. You're feeling it right now. That resonance, that recognition, that knowing that this is why you're here. The Arcturian collective is watching this moment. Not in a creepy surveillance way, but in the way that higher dimensional consciousness is always aware of significant energetic shifts in the lower dimensions. When a group of beings simultaneously clears interference and raises frequency, it creates a measurable shift in the planetary field. The Arcturians track these shifts. They support them. They amplify them. They send additional transmissions to stabilize and strengthen the new frequency, anchoring into physical reality. So when you speak your word of power in the comments, know that you're not just participating in a YouTube engagement strategy. You're contributing to a planetary activation. You're adding your unique frequency to a collective transmission that's shifting the consciousness of Earth. You're becoming part of the solution to the very interference pattern that's been blocking humanity's evolution for millennia. The interference isn't just personal, it's collective. Humanity as a whole has been operating under an interference pattern that keeps the species locked in survival consciousness, unable to access its full multidimensional potential. That collective interference manifests as individual self-doubt in each person. When enough individuals clear their personal interference, the collective pattern begins dissolving. This is the great work. This is the mission you signed up for before you incarnated here. If this transmission spoke to you, don't just scroll past it. Respond to it. Help amplify this message further. Leave a super thanks if you feel moved. Every act of support helps this transmission reach the next person who desperately needs to hear it. Every share expands the field. Every comment adds to the collective resonance. Every subscription strengthens the community of beings, choosing clarity over confusion, truth over comfortable lies, authentic voice over protective silence. This is how we change the world. Not through grand gestures or dramatic revolutions. Through millions of individual beings clearing their channels and choosing to transmit their authentic frequency instead of broadcasting their interference patterns. Through each person recognizing the one phrase blocking their signal and choosing to release it. Through collective commitment to clarity, coherence, and truth. The Arcturian Council is ready. Your higher self is ready. Your guides are ready. The only question remaining is, are you ready? Ready to identify your interference pattern. Ready to release it with compassion. Ready to reclaim your authentic voice. Ready to become the clear channel you came here to be. Ready to join the community of awakened beings anchoring new frequency on this planet. Ready to fulfill the mission you chose before you arrived here. The answer is already yes. You wouldn't have made it this far in the transmission if it wasn't. Your consciousness wouldn't have sustained attention through this entire journey if it wasn't recognizing truth at the deepest level. So now it's just a matter of taking the next step, doing the practice, speaking the words, making the declaration, clearing the channel, and watching as your entire reality reorganizes around your new frequency. The time is now. The moment is here. The transmission is complete. What you do with it determines everything. Choose clarity. Choose truth. Choose your authentic voice. Choose to clear the interference. And watch as the Arcturian collective floods your awareness with the guidance you've been seeking all along. It was always there. You just needed to remove the one thing blocking your ability to receive it clearly. If this transmission activated something in you, consider returning to it tomorrow morning to anchor the frequency before your day begins, or share it with someone navigating their own interference patterns. That act of sharing reinforces your own clarity while creating an energetic bridge that accelerates awakening for both of you. Welcome home to your frequency. Welcome back to your truth. Welcome to the clear channel you've always been. Now that you understand how to clear the interference blocking your connection to the Arcturian Council, you're ready to discover what judgment they've reached about you specifically and the extraordinary role you're being prepared to fulfill. The Arcturian Council has reached a judgment, and understanding this verdict will show you exactly why clearing your channel now was essential timing for what's unfolding in your life. The transmission continues.